Good morning everyone. My name is Arjeline May Buendia. My topic is all about Lesson 7, Men and Masculinities. First, definition of terms. Masculinities, a social, cultural, and historical constructions of men dependent on or related to other factors such as class, ethnicity, sexuality, age, and disability. Hegemonic masculinities, a form of masculinity which is culturally dominant in a given setting. Rotase masculinity, a form of masculinity which culturally dominant in a marginalized settings. And last, a caring masculinity proposes that the men are able to adapt what is viewed as traditionally feminine. Introduction. Since 1997, studies of different aspects of manhood, from men in the labor market to men in the family and violent men, etc., were made. By 20th century, the number of these studies increased dramatically. A growing body of literature theorizing men and masculinities focuses on a variety of topics, including men's violence, fatherhood, pornography, men's crimes, female masculinity, male femininity, and etc. This study across, despite of the clear dominance of men over global economic and political power, men make up a large majority of corporate executive top professionals and holders of public office. Worldwide, men held 93% of cabinet level posts in 1996 and the most top positions in international agencies. Essentially, views of gender are still popular and constantly reinforced in the media. However, they are increasingly under challenge not only in biology, Foss Sterling 1992, but also in everyday life. The rise of a women's liberation movement and many feminism that have followed on from it produce a massive disturbance in the gender system and people's assumptions about gender. Large number of men now acknowledge that their position under the challenge that what they once took for granted about must be rethought, making men's studies in masculinity became popular. Men's Right Lobby. Men's Rights Lobby. One of the founding texts of his lobby by Warren Farrell in his works, The Might of Male Power. Why are the men their disposable sex? 1994. According to him, men are now the gender victims as a result of feminism had gone too far, with men having increased responsibilities but few rights around issues of marriage, divorce, child custody, and access to children. Modern regulations is seen to be overprotective of women's interests, resulting in discriminations against men at the time when they are under increasing threat within rapidly changing society. Still, some researchers argue that this is pro-male movement where the reactions of feminism, an attempt to accuse women and feminists for creating problems that men encounter in the society. Masculinity themes. Masculinity is a social, cultural, and historical construct dependent on related to other factors such as class, ethnicity, sexuality, age, and disability. Researcher on men's studies masculinity established common themes which strengthen and develop these evolving concepts. Multiple masculinity. According, there's no one pattern of masculinity that's found everywhere. Different cultures in different periods of history construct a masculinity differently. Some cultures make heroes of soldiers and regards violence as ultimate test of masculinity. Other cultures look soldering with disdain and regards violence as contemptible. Some countries regard homosexual sex as incompatible with true masculinity. Other countries think that no person can real man without having had a homosexual relationship. The meaning of masculinity in a work-class life is different from the meaning in the middle-class life. And some goes among the very rich and the very poor. It is even possible that more than one kind of masculinity can be found within a given cultural setting within a specific class. This is the only shows that masculinity cannot be delimited as a sole definitions or descriptions of various countries, culture, and level in life, views, and concept differently. Second is hierarchy and hegemony, the form of masculinity which culturally dominant in a given setting called hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic signifies a position of cultural authority and leadership, not a total dominance as other forms of masculinity possess alongside. Hegemonic masculinity embodies a popular heroes, role models, and fictional characters according to Kimmel 1997, hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity was understood as the pattern of practice that allowed men's dominance over women to continue. Hegemonic masculinity embodied a currently most honored way of being a man as is required all other men's positions themselves in relation to it, and ideologically geminated a global subordination of women to men. Men who received the benefits of patriarchy without enacting a strong version of masculine dominance could be regarded as showing a complicit masculinity. Hegemony did not mean violence, although it could be supported by force. It means ascendancy achieved through culture, institutions, and persuasions. Hegemonic masculinity in Western society hinges on heterosexual economic autonomy, being able to provide one's a family, being rational, being successful, keeping one's emotion in check, and above all, not doing anything considered feminine. Hegemonic male norms threes such as courage, aggressions, autonomy, mastery, technological skill, adventure, toughness in mind and body. Moreover, hegemonic masculinity is hegemonic not just in relation to other masculinities, but in relations to the other gender order as a whole. It is an expressions of the privilege of men collectively have over women. The hierarchy of masculinities is an expression of unequal shares is the privilege held by different groups of men. Thus, some masculinities are them as higher than others, as well as higher than forms of gender. Collective masculinities. Gender structures of society define particular patterns of conduct of individuals as either masculine or feminine. This pattern also exists at the collective level in institutions, such as corporations, armies, governments, and even schools. Masculinities are also defined collectively in a workplace in informal groups like street gangs. Masculinity also exists impressionally in culture. Video games, for example, circulate stereotype image or violent masculinity. Cinema and TV shows portray stereotypes of masculinity such as abandoning father, disgruntled students, abusive partner, and drug convict. In sports, an aggressive kind of masculinity is created organizationally by its structure, pattern of competition, system of training, and hierarchy of levels and rewards. Masculinities and well-being. Research confirms a strong associations between rigid norms about what it means to be a man and men's negative health practices and vulnerabilities, Barker 2011. Men are unlikely to talk about their worries and more likely to drink and engage in others' destructive behaviors when they stress. These findings echo the violence that literature's informing stereotypes and rigid notions to masculinity contributes a suicidal behavior and depression. Culturally, dominant forms of masculinity which often urge men to practice a strict emotionally control, serve as a barriers to health and help-seeking behavior, or encourage some men to engage in parties detrimental to their own health and that of their families. Evidence confirms that death and disability rates related to alcohol and substance abuse are considerably higher for men than women, making substance abuse and addictions predominantly male phenomena worldwide. The requirement of physical strength appears to be nearly universal component of dominant masculinity, according to Katz 1999. The physical version of hegemonic masculinity has been promoted by globalizations via film, toys, and other goods. Kat point out that unrealistic evolution of actions figures biceps in many cases depicted as larger than the doll's head. Kat even notes that their toys reinforce the association of masculinity with violence, even if its violence is something heroic. Family information, gathering, caregiving, and domestic roles. Domestic roles are close associated with women rather, as carrying them out can be involved a loss of face for men. Great deals we heard about increase on women's labor force participation in recent decades, but less about men's caregiving domestic roles. Research, however, showed that the men are average, not greatly increasing the role in household works and unpaid, according to Bunker and Pollack 2011. Less, they don't know men are missing out not engaging more in their domestic and family rules. It has been shown that being involved in lives of the children brings psychological and health benefits to men. Research in child development demonstrate lasting benefits to children of their fathers, involvement in terms of their confidence and school performance. However, it was said that the man may contribute to the domestic enterprise in other important ways, including through providing financial support, accompanying children to activities outside of men or home. Better educated men are more likely to put more than into domestic rules and caregiving men. Men's schooling may have expanded their sense of norms, weakened stereotypes through their exposures and broader ideas, more diverse people. Masculinities, alcohol, and drug use. More men drink than women, and men drink more than women. Studies how men were more likely to drink than women. Drunk alcohol is greater quantity of more frequently than women, and they're more likely to face alcohol-related health and social problems than women. In many settings, men's drinks encourage solidarity and stimulate courage. It is a key for groups, ritual, as well as being recreational activity. When men became drunk, fights and homicides are rationalized and women are encouraged to tolerate men drunkenness as a natural part of their being men. Drug use and drug dealing can be served as a way of constructing a powerfully and masculine identity. Protest masculinity. Protest masculinity is a form of marginalized masculinity which picks up themes of hegemonic masculinity in society at large but reworks them in a context of poverty. In other words, it is akin to homogenic masculinity but a social deprived context. It refers to describe instances of extreme forms of sex-type behavior on the part of some males. Key to the concept of protest masculinity are high levels of physical aggressions. The protest of masculinity profile is also proposed as including destructiveness, low tolerance for delayed gratifications, crime, drinking, and similar disposition. Protest masculinity is often a product of narcissism built from deep feelings of powerfulness and insecurity. Caring masculinity. The emergence of caring masculinity in many parts of the world has been assessed in several reports since the early 2000s all of them highlighting the virtuous impact of the reshape in male identities and practice or gender inequality, improvements in societies. After decades, women demanding equal rights and opportunities for the end of male dominance and its harmful costs in their lives. Caring masculinities arise as a strong ally against homogenic masculinity. The concept of caring masculinity proposes that the men are able to adapt what is viewed as traditionally feminine characteristics. Emotionally, expression, sensitivity, domestication, interdependence, caring without etc. without departing from or rejecting masculinity. Caring masculinities can be seen as masculine identities that exclude dominations and embrace the effective relational, emotional, and interdependence qualities of care, a critical form of men's engagement in gender inequality because doing care work requires men to resist homogenic masculinity and to adopt values and characteristics of care that are antithetical to homogenic masculinity. So, besides the commitment, care, work, and gender inequality, caring masculinities entail the mindful refusal of homogenic masculinity and inherent prerogatives or privileged dominance power. As well as besides the commitment of care work and gender inequality, caring masculinities entail a mindful refusal of homogenic masculinities, include privilege, dominance, and power, as well as the plural manifestations of complicit masculinity that is assumed. Men who approximate this form of masculinity are viewed as a form of human according to Singleton and Maher 2004. That's all. Thank you.